One of the biggest misconceptions about the long guard is that it only works for tall fighters with long reach. But as Gervonta Tank Davis showed against Ryan Garcia, that is absolutely not true. Standing at 5'10" with a 70-inch reach, Garcia had the advantage in height and length, but he did not have an answer for Tank's oppressive long guard game. Using basic long guard traffic and traps, Tank took control of Garcia's lead hand and used that control to close the gap, draw out and counter specific punches, and ultimately set up both the knockdown and the knockout shot. Here's how he did it.
Joe Goosen wants him to utilize the jab, keep the jab. The jab is going to be so important here in this fight.
How do tall fighters keep shorter opponents from closing the gap?
Well, everybody know obviously keep that jab off. This, if you don't use this, you might as well not box or spar.
That was Donta Hill from the Sweet Science Boxing Gym, and that is good advice. When you need to keep a short fighter out, you use the jab. It's the taller fighter's main tool and the shorter fighter's biggest problem. Short fighters, wouldn't it be nice if you could just take it out of the equation? Well, the long guard gives you the tools to do just that, at least in spots. Make no mistake, Ryan Garcia wanted to use his jab, but Tank wouldn't let him. He took the taller man's best tool away, and it was easy. Anytime he wanted a break from jab defense duty, he would just reach out with his lead hand to block the path of the punch, or when he was close enough, pin Garcia's glove in place. Here we see him putting traffic in front of the jab, blocking the lane Garcia's punch would need to travel down. Here we see Tank trapping the hand with glove on glove pressure. In both cases, Tank stops the jab before it starts, getting proactive with his long guard defense, instead of sitting back, allowing Garcia to throw and relying on a read to keep him safe. Together, these techniques gave Tank control of Garcia's lead and effectively forced him to fight one-handed, and he didn't need longer arms or a height advantage to do it. Without a jab to work with, Garcia couldn't set much up. Tank's control of Garcia's jab also made it very easy for him to close the gap, as he could step and slip or bump in on that side with his head behind cover. There are ways to counter aggressive traffic and traps like these, of course, and as Garcia found out against Luke Campbell, leaving the hand out can get you in some trouble. But if you know where you're open and how to defend those openings, you can really make it hard for the opponent to get their jab going, and that is invaluable for short fighters. CompuBox stats tell the story of this fight. Garcia landed just 3 of 21 jabs in round 1, a below average output with a low connect percentage. In round 2, Garcia's jab was even less effective. Tank only let him throw 8, and not a single one landed. From the 3rd round on, Garcia would throw less than 20 jabs per round and land no more than 3. Notice Tank's low jab output too, another indicator of an active long guard. It's important to understand this trade-off. When using the long guard, you trade lead hand weapons for tools. But in Tank's case, it was a damn good trade. I'd go so far as to say that Tank's long guard won him the fight, as it took Garcia's lead hand out of the equation, helped him close the gap, and as you'll see, set up all the best punches of the night.
You saw a smile. It was almost a smirk from Tank when Ryan was coming forward.
As you know by now, controlling the jab lane using traps and traffic makes life a lot easier for short fighters, giving them fewer punches to worry about and helping to close the gap. But you can also use this control to set up counter punches, and that's exactly what Tank did, using his long guard to counter Garcia's longer jab all night. Here's the basic idea. When you want to stop the jab, you cover the lane, using the glove, forearm, or palm of the hand to block the path of the punch before it's thrown. When you want to counter the jab, you clear the lane and invite them to punch. The longer you deny the opponent their jab using traps and traffic, the more eager they'll be to throw it once the way is clear, so take your time and starve them out. Once they're frustrated, you've got a good read and your best jab counter is primed and ready, clear the way and execute as soon as they commit. If they don't bite right away, either move on or get your hand back to position to close that lane up. This counter is great in particular because it will discourage your taller opponent from using their number 1 range control tool, and it will also force them to question any apparent openings later on, which could stop you from getting caught with a jab you weren't actually prepared for. But this concept goes way beyond a single counter. To learn more about this idea of lane manipulation, you can watch this video for short boxing, or feel free to ask me any questions you have down in the comments. Tank's control of Garcia's lead hand also helped him to set up a very safe cross on a very regular basis. When throwing your cross in opposite stance matchups, it's usually a good idea to slip your head over the lead hip as you punch, especially if you have the outside foot position, as it takes your head off the straight punch line and makes it easy to step, pivot, or roll out, as we saw Tank do all night long. But in order for your head to reach this relatively safe end position, it must move across the opponent's jab lane and directly into their hook, which can be pretty scary. But it isn't scary for Tank because he keeps control of Garcia's lead hand the whole time. His hand traps are like crossing guards, halting oncoming punches so his head can safely cross the lane as he throws his power left to the head or body. With hand traps covering his entry and a safe end position from which to exit, Tank was able to land his cross all night. You can do this too, even if your arms are shorter than your opponent's. It works for Southpaws against orthodox fighters and vice versa, and you can apply it in same stance matchups by directing your traffic at the opponent's backhand instead.
That's one of the first left hooks, and that wasn't a dynamite left hook, but it was one of the few left hooks he's been able to get in.
Like I said in part 1, when you extend the lead hand to work with traffic and traps, you need to know where you're open and how to defend those openings. Though he is only 5'6", Tank is a long guard master, and he used its openings to repeatedly draw and counter Garcia's hook, setting up both the knockdown and knockout shot with the same simple trick. This trick requires a light touch, which is usually not what we want with hand traps. Usually we want to trap hard to really pin the hand in place so they can't use it to throw any punch. But with this trick, you want to be much more gentle, just making contact with the hand or hovering close to it, but not pushing hard enough to lock it in place. You are essentially creating traffic that looks like a hand trap. From this position, the jab is not available. Tank is completely blocking its path. However, while this might look like a hand trap and even feel like it if Tank applies a bit of pressure, it lacks the heavy pressure of a true hand trap, so Garcia can still hook over or around Tank's hand. And Tank knows it. In fact, he's expecting it, and he's ready to duck under and counter hard at the first sign of commitment. He knows Garcia loves to throw the hook, and that he's hungry for it, after having his hand trapped in place for so long. Sure, the cross hand is free, but that's a risky punch to lead with. To Garcia, the hook would seem like his best bet from here. And that's the whole idea. Tank is denying Garcia the jab, but leaving him the hook, so he can draw the punch, make him miss, and make him pay. This is how Tank, the shorter man, turned a long guard opening into an opportunity to make King Ryan quit. As soon as Tank got comfortable and felt ready to counter the hook, he took this position, set the trap, and waited for his moment. He did this several times, before and after the knockdown punch, making Garcia miss and pay for his hooks with big counters. Ultimately, he would also use this trick to set up the knockout, ducking inside and into position to land the liver shot. I hope this video helps answer the question of whether or not short fighters can use the long guard against taller opponents. If it's not clear by now, that answer is a resounding yes. Tank might have been the shorter man, but as we've seen, he used an oppressive long guard game to take control of Garcia's lead hand, close the gap, and land big punches. If you like this video and you want to learn more about the long guard system, I recommend you watch any of these videos. And don't forget to subscribe, because there's plenty more on the way. If you're looking for more ways to support the channel, you can check me out on Patreon, but really, that is completely optional, and by watching this video, you've already helped me out so much. So thank you. Until next time, stay safe, study hard, and train smart.